Condominium Ownership Act. Condominiums pose some interesting issues from an ownership point of view. Your first inclination may be to treat them the same as any other residential dwelling. However, doing so may prove problematic. When considering a typical residential home, one is able to physically identify the ground or real estate belonging to the home. A description of the actual ground is possible, and identification of the subject property is fairly simple. A condominium or condo is a different story. Condos will often resemble apartment buildings. A building of condos often consists of multiple levels. Let's use a 3-story condo building as an example. Let's assume the building has 4 units on each floor. Who owns the real estate on which the building stands? If the building is 3 stories high, 3 different units sit on the exact same piece of property. One could also make the argument that all 12 units in the building sit on the exact same piece of property. If the only way to own real property is to own the ground on which the building sits, condo owners would have a problem. The Condominium Ownership Act was passed to solve the condo ownership dilemma. The Condominium Ownership Act makes it possible to own real property without owning the ground itself. Condominium projects, by definition, include common area. For example, the ground surrounding the condo building is considered common area. If the project has a clubhouse or a swimming pool, it is considered common area. Common area is owned by all of the owners of the project together. The Act requires each condo ownership interest to include an undivided interest in the common area. For example, if the complex had 100 units, each owner would own a 1% interest in the common areas. The Act also provides for a condo owner to own the actual unit in which they live. The Act gets very specific as far as what part of the building a condo owner actually owns. Basically, an owner owns from the interior wall of the unit into the unit. The exterior of the unit is considered common area. The Act provides for identical ownership rights of the actual unit as the owner of a traditional residence on a piece of property. The condo owner has exclusive right to use the property, sell the property, and anything else they would be able to do if their ownership rights were a traditional property. A condominium must have a recorded condominium declaration, setting forth the legal description and other details of the project. The project must also have a homeowners association to manage and maintain the common area. Usually, condo owners will be required to pay a homeowner's fee monthly to the association to fund the maintenance of the common areas. The association is responsible for maintenance and insurance of all common areas. Some common areas are easy to identify, such as common landscaping, parks, clubhouses, etc. The association is obviously responsible for maintaining these types of amenities. Remember, part of the buildings are also considered common areas. Let's assume each unit in a project has a patio. If one owner's patio starts cracking and needs to be repaired, who is responsible? As we discussed previously, everything outside of a unit's interior wall is considered common area. Therefore, the maintenance or repair of the patio is most likely the responsibility of the homeowners association, not the individual condo owner. Some properties may look like condominiums, but legally may be something else. Let's assume you have a project consisting of buildings of 4 townhomes side by side. All 4 units are attached. This project may be a condo or may be a planned unit development of townhomes. If it is the latter, the individual owners actually own the ground on which their townhome sits. Often, the owner will own a small yard behind the unit as well. The complex may still have common areas and will require a homeowners association and the accompanying association dues. However, if the complex is not legally a condominium, the Act is not necessary to allow individual ownership. The Condominium Ownership Act allows condominiums to be treated similarly to traditional real estate, granting the same ownership rights to individual condominium owners. Utah Exemptions Act. The Utah Exemptions Act deals with protecting property owned by individuals from the actions of creditors. For example, an individual owed a certain creditor a substantial sum of money. The creditor may sue the individual to recover the amount owed. If the creditor were to win the lawsuit, the creditor would have a right to go after anything the individual owned to satisfy the debt. For example, the individual could be forced to sell their car to satisfy the obligation. The Utah Exemptions Act is meant to protect a minimal amount of assets of an individual from the claims of creditors and liens. The first exemption relates to a person's primary residence. The Act provides for a $20,000 exemption for a primary residence. If there are two owners, the exemption may be doubled to $40,000, but may not exceed $40,000.